What's going on, guys? Do you let winter, the fact that the temperatures have dropped, snow's falling, stop you from getting out backpacking? If so, this video is for you. I'm going to go over some tips and tricks and some gear items that will help you have a better experience while winter backpacking. So let's get to it. Tip number one is to have the right attitude and the right mindset about winter backpacking in the first place. If you start to think about, man, it's so cold, it's so miserable, it takes more gear, it's harder to set things up, my hands will be cold, my feet will be cold, whatever, it'll never happen. But if you go into it thinking, you know what, I'm gonna get out there, I'm gonna have a good time, I'm gonna see what winter backpacking, camping out there in the winter, in this wonderland out here, has for me. So very first thing is change your mindset, have a good attitude about it, and I promise you that goes a long way, and you will have a better experience because of that. Whew, it's getting cold out here. All right, tip number two is to take the right gear with you. Winter backpacking can be a challenge at times, to know what to take, to know if you're going to have the right gear to stay warm, all of that. There's a ton that can go into it. That's why I think it's important for, to kind of break it down and to simplify. I break it down into normal backpacking stuff: sleep system, shelter, what I'm going to carry it with. Am I using a sled? Am I using a backpack? Am I going to sleep in a tent? Am I going to sleep in a hammock? And, what cook system am I going to use? So breaking it down and just kind of thinking what's going to be best for you, for the conditions, for the situation, to make it a great experience, that's going to go very far in your enjoyment and also your preparation for it. So let's look at a couple things that I take with me. Oftentimes I will take a 3-season, if I'm going to sleep in a tent when I'm out winter backpacking, oftentimes I'll just take a 3-season tent, depending on how much snow I think is going to fall or is in the forecast. Oftentimes a 3-season tent is sufficient. Other times I will sleep in my hammock. In fact, most times I sleep in my hammock and I stay toasty warm. Tent will depend on if I'm going with my kids. And a hammock is the majority of the thing that I go to. But what are you gonna use? Both of them have different sleep systems. So a tent, whether it's a 3-season, I would suggest a 4-season if you're going out in the winter. But if you only have a 3-season, don't let that stop you. So in a tent, the sleep system would consist of a sleeping pad, a top quilt or a mummy bag that is rated sufficiently for the conditions. If it's going to get down to 0 degrees, you definitely want a sleeping bag or a top quilt that is rated to get down to those temperatures. Look at ratings, especially on if it's a less expensive sleeping bag, they're probably a survival rating. Whereas like if you buy a more expensive, higher quality sleeping bag or top quilt, oftentimes those are comfort ratings, and you can get a little bit colder temperatures with those. My top quilt is a 20 degree and I've gotten down to 7 degrees with it, and I've been just fine. It's comfort rated though. And so I've stayed warm at 7 degrees, but I wouldn't want to take it much colder than that. If you are going out and you're not sure, take something supplemental. So some supplemental items that you might take with you is maybe a reflective little mat it can go underneath your sleeping pad to give you a little bit more insulation. This one is actually some cheapo stuff from, I forget the name of it, but it's from Home Depot. And I've made it into a tube so I can slip an air mattress inside of here and insulate it on both sides, but it can just go underneath my air mattress if I need to. And then also I have another little blanket that is synthetic that can be supplemental as well. And so just some different things to take with you if you're out winter backpacking and you aren't totally sure how well your gear is going to perform. it's better to take a few more items. If you can fit them in your pack, then take them along and just make sure that you're staying safe and staying warm out there. Now, if you're unaware about the sleep system and sleeping on the ground or in a hammock, in a hammock, the wind will pass under you and it'll suck the heat right out of you, and you'll get really cold on your whatever side is touching the hammock. And so there's a top or an underquilt that you can attach, and that has its own temperature rating. Or in a tent, the part of the sleep system is the sleeping pad, and you want that to be rated at something like 4.8, 4.9. You might get away with 4 depending on the temperature, but I would say the higher the R value on a sleeping pad, the more comfortable you're going to sleep, because you're going to stay warmer. That ground temperature is not going to, it's not going to suck the heat out of you. If you can get a warmer one, they do get more expensive as you get a higher R value sleeping pad. So something to consider. But if you can also stack pads. You can use foam pads. Some down booties are also awesome to keep your feet warm. They weigh next to nothing, and I mean they're pretty lightweight, and they're well worth the extra weight, and they pack down really small. These ones here are from Outdoor Vitals. They're not down. I think it's a combination. I forget exactly the feel of them, but these have been great. They've kept my feet very warm. In fact, my kids usually steal them from me. So one thing that you definitely want when you're out winter camping is a little shovel. This one is pretty, I think it was like 20 bucks, and it's pretty lightweight, and it fits on the side of my pack. This one's by a company called Crescent Moon, and it's been great. I haven't had any issues with it. I've used it as a hammer, like I was doing here with pounding some of these stakes in. You want to be careful with it because it is a lightweight aluminum, but it does the trick. You can also use it, I haven't done this, but you could also use it as a frying pan to cook something on if you were down to that. But kind of versatile, but mostly to clear out some spots, dig some holes for stakes, maybe pile snow to a wind block or whatever. But something like this is definitely super helpful to be able to assist with all of those tasks while winter camping. It started to get really chilly out here, and so I thought I'd discuss my layering system for winter backpacking. And everyone has kind of their own idea, but the general philosophy of layering is pretty much the same. Right now I've got a base layer on, and then I've got a mid layer, and that's what I've been hiking in. I've been venting it as I needed to, unzipping, zipping it back up. I haven't spent a whole lot of money on my layering system, just because one, I'm trying to lose weight, and it's kind of nice stuff's kind of expensive, and so, but what I've been using has made do, and I haven't had any issues with hypothermia or getting too cold, getting too hot. So definitely better options out there. However, with pit zips and things like that. So what I have in here is some different items that I use once I kind of if I start to get chilly, for one, and once I'm done with all the work, the sweaty stuff, the stuff that's going to make me get sweaty. So here's my philosophy on it. What I guess not my philosophy, the things that I do, I should say. So yeah, so I definitely bring a shell with me, something that's going to be good for wind. This one also is a little bit, it's not a rain jacket, but it does well if it gets snow on it. It'll, won't seep through. So this is definitely something that I use. And if it's windy, just to keep that wind off of me, because that wind will come through and it'll penetrate any of these mid layers or anything, and it'll cool you down really quick. So just something like this Obviously, like a Gore-Tex lined jacket or something like that that's breathable with pit zips and those kinds of things are going to be more expensive. They're also about $300-ish. So, but this one here has been great. This one I think is by, yeah, 32 degrees, and I think it was like 30 bucks. So I've used it for a few years. It's been doing great. When I lose weight and I'm ultimately to a point where I want to spend $200 or $300 on something, then yeah, then I'll go for it. But right now, something light, something cheap that has done the job. And yeah, so that's a definite essential item as far as base layers go. It's something like a windbreak, and maybe something that's a little waterproof as well. I do carry a fleece with me as well. This is just a fleece shirt, long sleeve, and it's done a great job as another mid layer. When I get to camp, if I'm sweated out in this one, if this one's kind of, I don't want to put on other stuff underneath this or have this over it, or stuff over this one, I'll throw this on, and then I will put on my other gear that will be better at, you know, keeping me warm, along with a new, fresh, dry, unsweated out piece of gear as far as an under a mid layer, I should say. One thing that I swear by is when you're done with all the chores, I'll say cutting wood, clearing out your spot, getting your tent set up, getting camp set up in general, then I am sold on just changing out of your clothes, your underlayer, your base layer, and getting into something clean, so getting into something fresh. The reason for that is because a lot of times even though it might seem dry, the clothing that you've hiked in, it's going to be it's going to hold on to some oils from your skin, and that can, regardless of whether it's wet or dry, it's going to impede some of the insulation properties that are so good with a synthetic underlayer, or base layer, I should say. And so that's why I always switch out of you know, I'll switch out of this base layer and put this base layer on, both top and bottom, and just carry that with me. Doesn't add a whole ton of extra weight to your pack, but I'll tell you, it's going to make a big difference when you're chilling at night at camp or around the fire, or when you're in bed and you're much warmer because of it. Now, if you don't have room for it, then that's, you know, whatever. But there are some things that I think are essentials, and this is one that staying warm is essential out there in the winter if you're gonna have a good time. So I would definitely say don't cut on a clean, dry change of base layer base layer. The next item I would say is that I have in here is just a balaclava. If you have a balaclava, this is going to work wonders. Another thing that's super important is a change of socks. A lot of times your socks will dry. Same thing with these. Your socks may dry, and they'll feel dry inside your boots, but that is one reason that you're going to get cold feet, is having wet socks, and you go into bed in wet socks. So if you don't have an extra pair of socks, you can take your socks off, and it's better to sleep with no socks than with wet socks. Stick them in the bottom of the foot of your sleeping bag or your top quilt, and your body heat will dry them. But also, I would just carry an extra pair of socks. It's so simple, and you know they're dry, you know they're clean, they don't have oils from your skin on them, and they're going to keep you much warmer at night. So just something extra to carry with you. And then I carry, if I've hiked in a pair of thinner gloves and they've kind of maybe gotten a little sweated out, or I've worked with them as I've been setting up camp or whatever, then I'll carry an extra pair of gloves. And then the final thing is an outer layer. This thing is super key in the layering system as well. So you've got your base layer again, you've got your mid layer, and then you've got your outer layer. This can be a puffy jacket, it can be down, it can be synthetic, whatever you prefer. but just make sure that it's something that is going to be warm enough. But with that system, your layering system, you should have enough going on with that, enough insulative properties to keep you warm. And so, but yeah, just make sure that it's something that is going to keep you warm. You don't want something super thin, because again, the part that makes winter backpacking a success is staying warm. Yes, going out and having fun and having a blast, but I'll tell you, that fun factor really goes down really fast as soon as you start getting cold and as soon as you start getting miserable. So definitely don't skimp on the layering system. Figure it out and what works for you, and make sure you take those items with you. So this spot right here is fairly frozen. So what I'm going to do is just put the stake through this loop, and I'm going to put it in the snow. You don't need to put it very, very deep, because it will freeze and you'll have a hard time in the morning getting it out. But just bury this stake sideways. They do make snow stakes that are bigger, or you can just use like a branch from like a dead branch and put it through here. But this is something that it comes in super in handy if you're needing to, like if the ground's frozen or the snow's super deep, you just kind of bury it, tap it down. That'll actually freeze there, and it won't go anywhere. So just another tip for snow camping if you're setting up a tent. So this is where I'm going to put my tent, and I want to just trample down a pad, because snow is actually really just got a lot of air in it. So that's why if you go to melt snow for water, you're not going to get a whole ton of water out of a whole pot of snow, because it's just a bunch of air. And so if you trample down the spot and let it sit for a little bit, 15-20 minutes, and then set up your tent, you'll have a nice pad for sleeping on, and it won't be all settling while you're sleeping. So I'm gonna go over here and get to it. So these are some tried and true tips and tricks and gear items that I've used in my winter backpacking trips, and they've definitely enhanced my experience. So give them a try. See what you like, and see if it changes your experience out there in the backcountry when you're winter backpacking. Tell me in the comments, what do you do to make your backpacking experience better during winter time? If you haven't subscribed to my channel, consider doing so, and click the like button if you liked this video. Anyways, thanks for watching, and stay safe out there.